Welcome to Fourth Stream. We're having a great conversation about the kingdom, different aspects of the kingdom, and it's good to have you here. You can find both Bernadette and myself at the number 4 at fourthstream.com. Today we're talking about God treasure and what that is. And so where do I get that idea? Well, there's obviously a number of places from the Word of God, but after teaching his incredibly transferable kingdom parables, the sower, the wheat and the weeds, the seed, the leaven, hidden treasure, costly pearl, and the dragnet, a lot of times we're exposed to those right away and we go, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. But there's so much depth in the parables that you can continue to open those parables literally for a lifetime. So he gets done explaining this to his disciples in Matthew 13. And then he makes a curious statement to them, and he asks them a question. He says, have you understood these things? So going back to the parables, he's told them to them, expressed them in front of a group of people. His disciples are there. Then he turns to his disciples and says, have you understood these things? And they say, yes, which you got to admire him for that, right? Jesus said to them, therefore, every scribe who has become a disciple of the kingdom of heaven. So two different things. A scribe who then becomes a disciple of the kingdom of heaven is like the head of a household who brings out of his treasure things new and old. And I want to give a little bit of thought to that right now, although I think you could probably spend hours mining the depths of it if you were interested in doing that. Basically, we're learning about what a scribe is. What's a scribe? Well, a scribe is somebody who cares. They pay attention to the details. A detail person. I realize that I'm not a detail person. I'm more of a vision kind of a person, but I pay attention to details to the degree that they're important, right? So a scribe of the kingdom looks at what's important, and then as we address what's important, then the next step is to become a disciple of the kingdom. But, if you don't care and if it's blah, 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 Jesus, 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 well, where will that get you? So that's a thought. Become a disciple of the kingdom of heaven is like then the head of a household. Interesting. A family metaphor. How important was family to God? It was everything. It was everything. That's why he designed the earth the way that he did. That's why the further we get away from family, the more of a price that we pay because we aren't being good parents and we aren't being responsive children, etc. The whole thing in the family realm or the family world. So when he asks them about becoming the head of a household or explains that, then you get to not only become the head of a household, but you get to bring out of your treasure. So apparently treasure comes from this idea of being involved in a household and being the head of a household, which we'll talk about again in the future, but important to give some thought to it, who brings out of his treasure things new and old. What does that mean? Worth thinking about. That's what meditating is. Meditating is taking a concept and considering it. So let's give some careful thought as we encounter what the God story says about treasure. First of all, Jesus is crystal clear regarding the perishable and the imperishable. This is in Matthew chapter 6. I'm sure you've heard it. Don't store up for yourself treasures on earth where moth and rust, destroy, and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys, where thieves do not break in or steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So there is perishable treasure and there is imperishable treasure. And Jesus invites us, convinces us to embrace the imperishable treasure. He then, right along with that, and we're still in Matthew chapter 13, he talks about a darkness, a light and darkness metaphor. The eye of the lamp is of the body, or the eye is the lamp of the body. So then if your eye is clear, your whole body will be full of light. If your eye is bad or not clear, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light that is in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters. This is not a synthetic pivot. This is very much related. No one can serve two masters, for he will either hate the one and love the other, or he'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth. Okay? Is he saying that wealth is evil? No, it appears he once again, excuse me, is commenting on what shows honor. Well, this leads me to a series of personal questions as I think about this idea of, treasures in heaven rather than on earth, and having a clear eye rather than an eye that's filled with darkness. First of all, what's capturing your heart? It's very difficult to avoid the concerns of this life, but quite important to keep a clear eye with regard to earthly treasures. So that's something you have a choice about. I have a choice about as far as being a scribe and a disciple of the kingdom. Second of all, how do we allow Jesus and his kingdom to captivate our hearts so that we can be good for the mission of the kingdom church in the world? And finally, Paul talks about making use of the world, but not making full use of it. Well, where do you land on this? And I want to read from 1 Corinthians 7. But first, I'll grab some water because obviously I'm 1 Corinthians 7, verse 29. But I say, brothers, the time has been shortened so that from now on, those who have wives should be as though they had none. Those who weep as though they did not weep. Those who rejoice as though they did not rejoice. Those who buy as though they did not possess. And those who use the world as though they did not make full use of it. For the form of this world is passing away. So it's really important when you think about kingdom treasure to remember that the world is a part of us understanding what the treasure is, but we are not supposed to set our mind and our hearts upon earthly things, but on kingdom things. So the treasure process, which is, I don't know, it's a bigger conversation, but it all starts in the idea of this that's explained in Matthew chapter 13 about a scribe who becomes a disciple of the kingdom of heaven. Is that true of you? Are you the head of a household who brings out of your treasure things new and old, which we'll talk about at a different time? This is out of 1 Timothy 6. But godliness actually is a means of great gain when accompanied by contentment. For we have brought nothing into this world. See how these are all relating together? So we can't take anything out of it either. So if we're going to take treasures out of this earth, they're going to have to be a different kind of a treasure. If we have food and covering with these on this earth, we shall be content. But those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a snare and many foolish and harmful desires, which plunge men into ruin and destruction. The Bible has a lot to say about this, both sides of this. For the love of money is the root of all sorts of evil, and some, by longing for it or setting their affections upon it, have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs and pains. So the treasure process involves this sorting out, like the lamp of the eye, and making sure that you're sorting out the things that will not perish, treasures in heaven rather than things below. Now you'll notice in the the teaching that goes with this, and in the podcast notes, that I've got a diagram. And basically what I've done is I've taken a look at this whole idea of kingdom treasure, and I thought, what did Jesus actually say about this? And a lot of this comes out of the book of Matthew, by the way. Look at the circle: pure heart, know God, do kindness, grow life. That's what it means to be a disciple of the kingdom. That's what it means to be the head of a household. Okay? Not a simple thing. You'll have to meditate on it. You'll have to think about it. But I know you're that kind of a person. If Jesus has all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge hidden within himself, which we know that's true from Colossians 2, then knowing him is everything. We exchange what our world can only offer temporarily for the kingdom circle. Pure heart, okay? That doesn't mean I'm pure-hearted. What it means is that I basically have a heart that is humbled before God. I mean, look it up. You can look at the language. Basically, the idea there is that it's somebody who knows that we're a spiritual beggar. Who likes to admit that, right? Pure heart, know God, do kindness, and grow life. These are the treasures which will travel with us into the life to come. So our humility, how that opens the door to knowing God, how that then leads to doing kindness as a way of life, and then growing life through becoming a disciple of the kingdom and the head of a household. That's how it all fits together. I hope that makes sense. That's a lot. That's a load, but it's kind of core to what Jesus was teaching, very core. This is interesting. By faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to endure ill treatment with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin, considering the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking to the reward. That's in Hebrews chapter 11. So it seems to us, to Bernadette and I, that God treasure is our greatest value. And we think that if you find that treasure, then you will find the value that goes with it, as we have continued to do, and apparently are going to be able to do for a few more years. That's the way it looks anyway. A couple more things on this, on the kingdom parables, that discussion of the parables. There's a link at the bottom of the podcast notes, and then also the kingdom circle, that idea, pure heart, know God, do kindness, grow life. Big subjects, but you'll enjoy every moment you spend there. Again, you can find us for coaching or just to answer your questions at the number 4 at fourthstream.com. See you soon.